Hi folks, I'm Andrew and today I want to talk about our Liberon wood care range. It includes the retouch crayons, black bison wax, ring remover, wax and stain remover, and the 4-0 steel wool. Basically this is a do-it-yourself one-stop for being able to care for pretty much any piece of timber that you've got that's just had a little bit of wear and tear. Things will tend to get dull over time and build up a bit of surface grime, and that's where the wax and grease remover, wax and polish remover is really useful. Obviously I'm dealing with a piece of blank timber for today, so that's not needed. Neither is the ring remover. This is where we get coffee cup rings left on, especially things that have been French polished. It's not actually from the heat, it's from the moisture, and ring remover is very, very useful. You put it on the surface, give it quite a solid buff. It needs a lot of elbow grease because the way that it's dealing with the problem is actually by putting heat into the surface. But it does work quite well. Black bison wax is great for producing a hard wearing surface on timber. We use the 4-0 steel wool, get a generous amount and rub it into the surface. We recommend using one of the waxes which is tinted. They don't change the colour of the surface hugely. What they do though is fill any holes in the grain where there might be a scratch. And if you fill those holes with, say, the neutral wax, which is white, or the clear wax, which is a very, very pale yellow, you'll get a white line and your eye gets automatically drawn to that line. With the darker waxes, the grain gets filled with a darker line and it just looks normal and disappears. So you apply it fairly liberally to the surface and then leave it to rest for a while, and that just enables some of the oils that are in the wax to vaporize off. Once that's happened, then we get a cotton cloth and we just buff it up and it comes up to quite a nice shine. For timber that's had a gouge out of it, where you don't want to have to completely refinish the entire surface, we recommend using the Liberon retouching crayons with a sharp knife like a pocket knife. Just take off a few shavings and they can go into the hole. You pick whatever colour is going to be closest to the body colour of your timber, pack the hole to slightly over full with the wax, and then we would ordinarily get a coffee cup with boiling water in it and a hot spoon and use that to just melt the surface of the wax so that it sits flush, and then give things a little bit of a buff, and it matches in with the rest of the polished surface quite nicely without you having to go to the expense of doing an entire refinishing job. Hi folks, today I'd like to talk about our range of Liberon timber care products that come in our timber care pack. Our pack contains a ring remover, wax and polish remover, some black bison wax, some retouching crayons, and the Liberon 4-0 grade steel wool. This is a pack that enables you to pretty much do an emergency recovery of an item of timber that's been damaged and suffered a little bit of wear and tear without having to go to the expense of sending it off for a full French polish. One of the things that we find very, very useful are the retouching crayons. And if we've got a gouge in a piece of timber like we've got here, we can actually scrape off a small amount of the wax. They're harder than a normal crayon. So you chip off a little bit and pop it into the hole in your timber. And we tend to blend a couple of different colours to get the shade that we're hoping for on our piece of wood. And then you get a mug of boiling water and a hot spoon, and you can actually just melt the wax into the hole so that it sits flush with the rest of the wood. Take off the excess. We use our 4-0 steel wool. And we can buff the surface up. I've got a little bit more that I want to get rid of in the pale colour that I used, so I'll just use a little bit more, reheat my spoon. A bit more into that hole. There we are, our hole's pretty much gone. Okay, where we've got a timber surface that has become faded over the years, the Liberon black bison wax is very, very useful. Again, I'll use my useful spoon. And take the steel wool, get a little bit of wax, and rub it into the surface. And after we've put that on, we leave it to sit for a little bit, and that gives a chance for the oils that are in the wax to vaporise off. And then when we polish it up, it actually produces quite a nice high gloss surface. And it's quite a hard wearing surface. It's also moisture resistant, which means that things are not going to start looking anywhere near as shabby as quickly. Ring remover is very, very useful. It's designed for where you've got the little white rings that come again from having things like hot cups of coffee sitting on your table. The damage isn't actually caused by heat so much, it's caused by the moisture that gets drawn down and sits beneath the layers of the timber and the varnish layer on top. Applying ring remover to the surface, you need to buff it quite a lot. It needs a fair bit of elbow grease because you're actually using heat again to draw that moisture out. But it is quite effective. Where surfaces are getting a little bit hazy with a build-up of soot, smoke, dust, old wax that's been applied, and certainly before you're doing something like a full refinishing, we'd recommend using the wax and polish remover. So that's our Liberon Timber Care range. Thanks, folks.